Hi there everyone, welcome back to Dandelion Delphi Tutorials. Today we are going to have a look at the final of November 2021, Paper 1, Question 2. These questions will contain database related questions. Question 2.1 is the SQL and then the database programming would be question 2.2. I am going to split the video into two. So this one is going to deal with SQL, and then the next one will deal with the database programming section. This is what you can expect. It will say question 2, mentioning that it's SQL and database programming, and then they also mention a database and names of tables, and then they tell you there are attached pages at the end that has the design. Now, in your final exams, you get a little booklet, but don't be shy. Tear those last pages off. So I've opened up the document in two views here. These are the last pages, and these are the ones that you want to tear off. So it contains the databases, the tables at least of the database, and then also this relationship here. And it's best to put it next to you to keep track of what you're dealing with while you're programming. They also explain that they have included a restore database button. This is really needed when once you've made changes to the database and maybe you made a mistake, you want to go back and fix those errors and test it again, you might want to use the restore database. And then here, this is actually for question 2.1, so not important for now. And then a screenshot of question 2.1. And I suggest that you guys go and download this paper so that you can practice this with me. In the first button here, we need to use SQL code to display the names and towns of clubs in Gauteng that are SA affiliated. It says example of output here, so therefore your output should look exactly like this. Pause the video and try it yourself. They needed the club name and the club town of those in Gauteng, and they did give you a hint in brackets that you have to search for GP, but they also wanted those that were affiliated to SA. So that was important to make use of a second condition there to ensure that you only show those records. Here is the design view of TBL clubs. It was important to take note that province was a text data type and SA underscore affiliated was Boolean. The code for all these questions were provided. It gives you a string, and then they give you this part here, and then they also provide you the running of the SQL statement. So I'm just going to, for all the memos that I'm going to show you, I'm just going to show you this part here because then it's nice and big. We were supposed to display, remember, between the select and the from is what the person will see. So they want to see the club name and the club town from the table called TBL clubs, but only where the province, and remember province was a text data type, so you would need to add those quotes around GP, but also where they were affiliated. So SA affiliated had to be true. And remember, SA affiliated was a Boolean field, a yes-no field in the database or in the table. So therefore, no quotes around true, but true can be replaced with yes and even with 0. Not that I would recommend that. Just another note on what I'm showing you. You don't have to split your SQL statement with a plus there. This is just so that I can show it nice and big to you guys. You can write it in one long line of code. Question 2.1.1 is typically a very easy question. So hopefully you got it right. When you click on that, this is what should be displayed. There's a little restore button that I told you about. That only is needed after changes are made to the database. Question said here we need to, this is the next one, we need to display name, surname, and date of birth of the members who were born in 2002. So you could see that again, an example of output, and they say your formatting of your date was not important. Press pause and try it yourself. Now you can see here the date is not in TBL clubs, it's actually in TBL members. So this is the table we would read from. And if you look at date of birth, it's a date time data type. Here are two solutions. I do prefer the top one because I find it a bit simpler to code. But important is that we show the name, surname, and date of birth, only those three, and also put it in the same order as in the example of output. In many years ago, there was actually a mark for putting it in the right order. So that might score a mark. And as I showed you, these fields are in TBL members. So that's why we're reading from TBL members. But of only those where the birth year was in 2002. Now, birth date was a date time data type, and I'm able to use the function year on birth date. Year will extract only the year from a date time data type. And if that year is 2002, it will display the records. Since it's an integer that it extracts, it's only 2002. Don't get confused with a Delphi function called year of. Both do the same job, but year of will produce an error year. This is the second method, so everything at the top is the same. It's just my where that is different. You can use birthday with a like. But remember, usually when we have a date time data type as a field, the values here need hashes. But when we're using a like on a birth date field, we need to use double quotes. And I could say 2002 and the percentage sign, meaning that it starts with 2002. This would also give you the correct output. In the next question, they have provided code for us to store the club name from the combo box. Now, if we go back here and we look at, this actually is quite useful, is to look at your relationship. I'll just zoom in. You can see that the club name is in this field. They are linked through a club ID, but they are going to select a club name. However, they are asking us to display the name and surname of the member, and the name of surname of the member is in TBL members. So this means that we would need to read from both tables. Pause the video and try it yourself before you watch the memo. We were required to display the person's surname and their name, and that was actually just from TBL members. But because they're using the club name, I also need to read from TBL club. So in my from, I have to list both my fields, my tables, with a comma separating them. When we read from both tables, I need to indicate the link. Now the link you can see in here. It's TBL clubs dot club ID is equal to TBL members dot club ID. And that's the code that I've added here in my where. Always make it your first condition in your where when you're reading from both, so you don't forget to add them. Then this condition can be followed by an and then club name is a field from TBL clubs equal to what the user entered. They supplied for us that code to get input from the combo box in the string variable s club name. But because club name is a text data type, we would have to make use of quoted string to place quotes around the user's input. So now you can test it. I think they used comma there, comma something. Doesn't really matter. I think they used that one. This should be the output. But let's give you another one, Mountain Free. Oh, they had no members. I wonder how many don't have members. Oh, there we go. Box Hiking has 2 members as well. In button 2.1.4, we are asked to display the province and the average membership fee per province. There's our little clue. We also can see we're displaying a field and we have an aggregate function for the average. That must be another clue. Where the average membership fee is more than 400. Then the average member fee must be calculated using the heading AVG fee. That just means that's what you want to display there. And it must be displayed as a currency. Pause the video, try it yourself, and then watch the memo. So in this question, we want to display the province. Let's just go back. Always important to go back to your tables. Province is in TBL clubs, and membership fees are also in TBL clubs. So we only need to read from TBL clubs. So we're going to display the province and then calculate the average using AVG, the function, membership fees. They said we needed to display this answer here as a currency. So use format, round bracket, put your aggregate function inside here, and then make sure you use your double quotes with currency. Don't put FF currency there, just currency. And they wanted us to display it with the heading AVG fee. Now remember our rules if you've watched my SQL videos. When I'm using an aggregate function, they are AVG, count, max, min, and sum, those 5. If I'm using one of those and I'm displaying a field, I then need to group by this field. So after my from, I will have group by province. Province being the field that is being displayed. But the question then further said where this average member fee was more than 400. When the condition is on the aggregate function, I need to use a having. So I need to use a having, repeating that aggregate function and its field. So repeating that calculation is greater than 400. You can't use this AVG fee here. You will get an error. And you can't use this calculation inside of a where that also cause an error. You could use a where in here if the question was different. Let's say they said where the province was Gauteng again. You would add then your where in between your from and your group by. You would say where the province is equal to GP. But since this condition is on the aggregate function, it needs to be part of the having. Always make sure that when you read these questions where you can see it's greater than or greater to equal than or equal to, that you read it carefully and that you don't leave out the equals or put it in extra when it's not needed. I'm going to save some time in running the program. I mean, there's really no point because you can run it and see that you're getting the same output. Here is the last question for the SQL question. So last question of question 2.1. And they're asking us to write code to change all member names spelled as Ainsley to Ainsley, different spellings. Press pause and try it yourself. This one here won't show you any output. Since we had to change an existing value, we will use an update. And we update the name of a member and the names were in TBL members. We had to change the member name to this spelling. So remember to study the format of update. It is different from our delete and select statements. Insert and update is important to study those formats. So update this table, set which field? This field to this value where the member name is this. Now let's say you forgot this where and you've changed all your member names to Ainsley. I quickly did that so you can see what happened. I excluded my where now. So I have changed every single member there in this whole table. And now I sit with a problem because I've messed up my table. So this is where the restore button comes in. So you click on restore and you click on yes. And now we can select actually any of these hiking clubs. And we can see that at least everyone has their original names. But before we test it again, because if I change this now again, we'll go back to Ainsley. So, okay, let's restore it again. I would now have to go back and change my code. Here you can see I've just excluded my where, and that's why everyone's name's changed. So now I can run it again and test my program. So now change it, the record was updated, and there we can see there is the name. For these questions like insert, update, and delete, often there's no example of output, so it's hard to know if your code is working. Obviously, when you've changed them all to the same name, it was easy to see. However, you can maybe find a way of finding them. So you could look at your data tables. Here's an example of the one I had to change, and this guy was part of club ID. Now, this is a little bit of a long method of finding it. Now you have to go to this one here and see, okay, Wild Boast Hiking Club, that is the club of that person. And in this program here, we had the club names and we were able to, was that the name? No, that was not the name. Let's quickly have a look again. Wild Boast Hiking Club. Okay, so there we go. Display the members, and now I can see them. So sometimes there is a way to figure out how to get the values to display so you can actually see if what you've done worked. Let's just show you the restore button again. Okay, so I'm going to select the same club there. There you can see the way it's spelled now. And now say yes, I want to update it, display it again, and now it's been changed. Your question 2.1 containing SQL should actually be a question that you complete very quickly because it's all just based around rules. You need to study those rules and you can find them in my Dandelion Delphi book 2. I hope this helped you guys. See you soon.